So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. You're here for the Test Management in Jira Strategies for Success webinar. I'm Ashwini Sathe. I'm the Product Marketing Manager at SmartBear. I currently manage all of the Zephyr products that fall under SmartBear's test management business. So we have Zephyr Standalone, Zephyr for Jira, and Capture for Jira products. We also have Dr. Milind Verma, who's co-hosting this webinar with me today. Hi Milind, would you like to give a brief introduction and update our listeners on your background here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ashwini. My name's Milind Verma. I have been at Zephyr for yonks for many years, and we've helped a ton of organizations, a variety of scale, very small teams, very large teams, large deployments, assisting them with a variety of challenges that they've faced, be it trying to operate in an agile fashion, a scaled agile fashion, trying to get their CI/CD pipelines optimized, whatever it might be. We've certainly assisted organizations in a variety of different industries as well. And today's focus will be on Zephyr for Jira, and we certainly have had a ton of success with the plugin operating inside of the Jira environment and giving teams a very smooth transition from other tools, but also Excel spreadsheets as well. So looking forward to showing more in this demonstration for you.
So let's take a look at the agenda and know what you can expect to learn today. We'll do a quick overview of test management. We'll look at the key considerations for test management using Jira. We'll talk about some strategies for success, followed with a live demonstration of our Zephyr for Jira product. We'll of course have time for Q&A at the end, and we really hope you can get some of your pressing questions answered. So please feel free to send in your questions as we walk you through the webinar. We would like to begin by giving you a brief overview of SmartBear. So SmartBear was founded in 2009 in Boston, and we have grown to over 11 global offices and 500 employees. SmartBear is widely known for its open source tools. You must be aware of Swagger and SOAP UI that a lot of people do use. Today, we have over 6.5 million users and 22,000 customers trusting us with their software development. So if you really look at the breadth and depth of SmartBear products, it's evident from a portfolio that it spans across the entire software development lifecycle. We have product offerings in each important category, including planning, creating, testing, monitoring, and finally, managing and analyzing with our test management tool, Zephyr. So let's talk a little bit about test management. So what really is test management? As we know, this is essentially the process by which software teams plan, develop, execute, and report on all of the testing activities across the software development lifecycle. So as companies need to ship high quality products and meet, and exceed customer expectations, they need effective test management in place that will help them to take a structured approach to the entire testing process and keep the testing organized. You have to keep your testing efforts organized so that you can really gain the efficiency that you need. While we are discussing test management, it's also important to know why there is a need for test management tools. The first and foremost reason would be the pressure to deploy quality software faster. A test management solution really helps to solve this pain point by providing the right tools that addresses all functions the team need for doing efficient testing. So this would include planning, creation, execution, and reporting. Organizations are also often managing various forms of testing, including automation and manual testing. There is API, unit testing, and others. So there is definitely a need to manage all of this testing data efficiently so the teams can get the insights they need, which is made possible by a test management tool. There is, of course, this need to assess appropriate test coverage for the requirements and get that two-way traceability. Managers and QA leads especially need to track relevant quality metrics and utilize traceability reports so that they can check on the release progress, identify bottlenecks in the process, and correct them early on. You also need, when you have globally distributed teams and multiple teams doing testing, managers or even higher executives would need to get the visibility across the testing process and make sure teams are on track and well aligned with the release goals. So by allowing everyone from testers, developers, and managers to access all of the testing assets in a single centralized and shared space, and providing even other business stakeholders, like you have your project managers, product managers, visibility into the release cycle, test management tools help foster a collaborative culture. And this is definitely a huge plus. So all of these are critical reasons why teams would need a test management tool in the first place, and why they should definitely subscribe to one. Now it's time for our poll question 1. We are really interested to know what are you currently using for test management? Are you using Jira? Are you using spreadsheets or proprietary tools? Wow, okay, cool. We are getting a good response here.
Just leave this open for another 10 seconds or so. Thanks everyone for your responses here. I'll give you 5 more seconds to answer, and then we'll close it out and take a look at the results.
Yeah, a lot of analysis out there actually shows that a considerable percentage of teams are still using spreadsheets. So would be interesting to look at what our poll results show today.
All right.
Okay, so we have almost 61% people subscribing to Jira. We have around 26% spreadsheets and 10% proprietary tools. So we did ask the same question, what tool do you use for test management, in a state of testing survey last year, and we collected thousands of responses from various personas, including developers, testers, and we saw that almost a third of the respondents were using spreadsheets, and almost 60% confirmed using Jira for test management, which is really exactly what we saw in our poll today. So our focus today would be to guide you further and demonstrate how you can really elevate your test management with tools that have native Jira integration and provide you with full testing benefits right inside Jira. So now that we just went over, the different tools used for test management, it's important to consider the limitations that come with, using some of these tools. So let's look at what are the challenges or limitations you face when you're using spreadsheets for test management. So as your organization testing operations grows, it becomes cumbersome to use spreadsheets, as you need to create and store test documents with every release. You have to maintain the increasing test case data and also ensure its quality. There is difficulty in assessing the test coverage. Also, testing requires that different teams can collaborate and be on the same page, which can get difficult to achieve when you're just using spreadsheets. There's also the inability to efficiently track the changes that are made to tests. So, it makes it hard for the managers to gauge user accountability. Similarly, the reporting and visualization of test data is limited, which impacts your ability to get the optimum visibility and traceability you need. There is also this known limitation of lack of integration with, the test automation frameworks when teams use spreadsheets for test management. Similarly, there are people who are using legacy tools. We have a few in the market like Micro Focus ALM, which have their own set of limitations. Firstly, legacy solutions can put a strain on your wallet with the higher overall costs associated with on-site licensing versus the all-inclusive global licensing that you can avail with a test management tool like Zephyr and others. Plus, there is high renewal rates, the software license fees that could add on to the costs. Also, to achieve an agile testing process requires that you can easily integrate with automation and CI tools, but the siloed architecture can restrict the use of the more modern tool sets and does not give you the flexibility to use frameworks that make most sense for your unique workflows and processes. The browser and operating system support is also limited. The learning curve with these legacy tools can be steeper, and there is often a need for staff trainings to get the teams on board with the tool, which requires additional time and expense. Being bigger companies that support these legacy solutions, it's hard to get information on the product roadmap or the future plans for any of their offerings, making it challenging for companies to determine if the tool sets they're using today will continue to support their needs. So it's really important that you evaluate what your needs are, what are the considerations you can keep in mind for your test management, and then go and choose the right solution. With that, it's time to talk about test management in Jira, our core focus topic today. But before we dive into this further, we have another poll question for you. So we would really like to know, what are you currently using Jira for? So please check in your answers. Okay, this is great. So a lot of people are actually using Jira for defect tracking, followed by software development, and test management also ranks high. So I think you have come at the right webinar today, because this is exactly we are talking about. And with that, I think I'll hand over to my partner, Milan here, who will walk you through some very important insights on test management in Jira.
Perfect. Thank you, Ashwini. So to Jira, it seems like a very popular tool for not only for the test management users. According to the poll, certainly a lot of people are using Jira for test management, but also Jira is fantastic to capture your requirements, your user stories, your epics, your new improvements, any other issue types which you have inside of Jira. But it also facilitates a very agile way of working. So you can set up boards, you can communicate with your other users by integrating with other tools, you can work with CI solutions and bring the data in. You can also leverage some of the Atlassian stack, such as Confluence, to share data onto a wiki page. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to facilitate the needs of agile teams. Now, we'll be talking about, in a few moments, some of the more poignant elements around test management. When we're using Jira for test management, we can have the support for a variety of different ways of working, because of the flexibility in the solution to capture different types of issue types and then share this information with others and link these issue types to one another. So you can build these workflows within Jira to accommodate the business processes. And also there's that capability of sharing this data internally in your organization, pulling in people from what were traditionally separated teams. So now you can get the business talking to testers, talking to developers, because you can have epics which the BAs may create, you can have defects which the testers or the developers may create, or even users via an ITSM integration. So there's a variety of different ways that we can work, and Jira is highly configurable to accommodate your needs. Now, if you're using Jira for test management, you're probably configuring Jira to give you that additional test management capability. So you're probably creating a brand new issue type, or you're probably working with issue types which exist inside of Jira, like tasks and subtasks. So potentially you could have epics, and then stories, and then custom issue types that you've created for tests, and then have subtasks within there. Or indeed, even if you're not using a custom issue type, you might just be using the stories connected to tasks and subtasks which represent the test cases, and also the lower level steps as part of these test cases too. And there are some good advantages as well as some disadvantages of working in this way. And I'll talk through some of the specifics here. So when you're dealing with this test management capability inside of Jira, what you're not able to do is share test cases, is the ability to work with external frameworks like CI frameworks or automation frameworks. The view of test management progress is always still going to be driven towards the strengths of Jira to report in the way it does, but also dashboard and chart in the way it does, not really pulling in data in a way that you can pull out, for example, a traceability matrix. That's not possible. So aside from these, there are others. The point here around limited traceability is also tied into the earlier point of sharing and visibility, where you can't see the interconnectivities of stories to either the custom issue types or the tasks which you've created to hold your test case information to the sprint objects and the execution objects. You see, where in Jira, everything is captured by issue types, and you kind of search for these either by running JQL queries or saving JQL queries to represent your filters. What you're not able to do is capture the executions against the issue types and hold these either as a separate issue type or hold these as objects. And therefore, we can't really get that interconnectivity of what's going on in terms of work in between, such as capturing the execution objects, the instances of every time the test case is executed, who executed, when, and if there were any defects raised against the executions. Of course, there are some very creative ways that you can try to get around it, but you'll still have a limited capability there. And then, of course, you know, when you're dealing with these issue types, they are normally project specific, not really across projects and not really across releases. And so therefore sharing assets across these areas is going to be a challenge. So what can you do? How can you get around these limitations? Well, of course, you know, aside from customizing your Jira instance, you have a couple of approaches. One could be to go with an external Jira solution. Another one could be to go with a solution, a test management solution inside of Jira. But what are these solutions supposed to be achieving? Well, you're supposed to have a bidirectional integration with Jira. Be it inside, of course, you'll have it there. But if you're outside, you'll still need to connect up with your user stories, epics, new features, improvements, tasks, subtasks. And you'll need to connect these to test cases, and then your sprints, your test case assignments, and then your execution information and your defects. Of course, the early part of that, the requirements need to be in Jira, or most popularly are in Jira, and the defects most popularly are also in Jira. So we need to have that bidirectional connection if the test management solution is outside, and that bidirectional connection needs to be live, and it needs to kind of hold the update information and present it straight away, rather than forcing users to wait for a particular period of time whilst a bridge in the middle syncs the data. You don't really want that. So also you need a situation where you can share some of your test assets. You can benefit from a scenario where you've got a test repository, or you've got separate test repositories, either at a release level or a project level, or you've got a global repository, a kind of unified, centralized place where you can put all of your test assets and share that. So we either need data to be placed locally inside a release or inside a project, and also have the ability to share, or we need the ability to share it in a unified global place where users can, regardless of which project they're in, regardless of which release they're working on, they can dip into that area and pick up test cases, which either hold test cases which need to be shared, but also templates as well. Manual test cases are pretty common, but now we're seeing more and more automated teams. We're seeing organizations, being a bit daring rather than taking a kind of intermediary step of manually creating the test cases and then converting them into automated. We're seeing people plunging, headfirst into automation by working with CI solutions and working with popular automation frameworks like Selenium or Cucumber, straight away without having to kind of get that comfort of a manual test case and conversion. So we certainly need to accommodate these ways of working by pulling in the data into this one centralized place, be it outside of Jira or inside, and then being able to tie these back to requirements or tie forward the test case executions to defects as well. And this, of course, is linked to the bottom point of the test management solution being connected to some external frameworks. The test management framework should be connected to either a CI solution like Jenkins, like Bamboo, or like TeamCity, or needs to work directly with an automation framework like a Robot Framework, or like I've said previously, TeamCity, Test Complete, Selenium, whatever it might be. So we know that Jira is configurable, but we also need the test management solution to be configurable as well, because there might be some particular ways of working, whether it's making sure that there is a workflow for test execution or for test design, or for the planning process. We should be able to create a workflow that underpins a business process, and it should be in alignment with that. So we need the test management framework to be equally as configurable as Jira is. And then, of course, when it comes to actually, test driving the test management solution, you need to be able to try it out, right? You need to be able to access a trial instance of it, either something which you have to reach out to the organization for to request, or an automated trial mechanism, or like we have with Zephyr for Jira, where you can go to the Atlassian marketplace and click on the try now button, and you can try out the solution for a month. So, we need a way that that users can try out the solution before actually purchasing. Now, when it comes to technical support, first of all, we need a team that can assist with any challenges, with any issues that you're facing. But you also need the ability to have training, the ability to have health checks, where if you're using the solution, that someone checks in and just make sure that everything is okay, and that, if there are any queries that you have, or if the team has identified beyond just a training need, just have identified that there are areas which are being implemented in their organization, but they're not getting the best out of the solution. We need a best practice sessions to kind of shed some light on how the industry and other organizations of similar size or similar industry are actually doing things as well. And that can definitely help with an optimization of that product in the organization. So it's imperative to have a support team that can not only be proactive with getting this done, but also certainly very responsive when issues arise. Now, another consideration for picking the right test management solution is, of course, the budget. There are many different test management solutions available today, very different ways of pricing these test management solutions, whether it's site-oriented licenses or global licenses, or named or concurrent, or if you're working with a plugin inside of Jira, tier-oriented licenses. So there's many different nuances that you have to get comfortable with and understand the complexity of the commercial situation in order to decide the best solution for you. And certainly, if you do have any questions around this, or any support that you need at any of these points, actually, you can reach out to our team, and we can certainly assist you with the best way to pick a test management solution and exactly what to look out for. So when it comes to using the strengths of Jira, and its configurability and its capability to accommodate a variety of different ways from different teams' perspective. And then also the test management capability that SmartBear Zephyr have to offer. There is one big solution here to this, and that is the Zephyr for Jira test management solution, which fits inside of the Jira environment. And there's also an out of Jira environment called Zephyr Standalone. Now, what you're able to do with Zephyr for Jira is really get a robust set of reporting inside of the Jira environment without users having to navigate elsewhere. They can get up and running with test management straight away, because what Zephyr for Jira does is provides an out-of-the-box issue type of type test. And what this test can do is capture your custom fields at design stage, but also at execution stage as well, but can also capture your steps. There are some really nice and usable UI features, such as the freezing of columns and visual step capability, which has just come out with 4.0.3 for Zephyr for Jira Server. And actually on that point, let me highlight that the plugin inside of the Jira environment, Zephyr for Jira, can be deployed in Jira Cloud, but also Jira Server too. So reporting, you need to be able to have the traceability reports, the customization capabilities too. So you can pick and choose from your data points, as you do with JQL queries and with filters, but be able to export this out is certainly needed. And then certainly from a collaboration perspective, pulling in your existing users within Jira is of great value, because your BAs will most likely be using Jira, and your developers will be in the test team, will be in the ops team, will be using Jira. And if you can pull them in via comments or via assignments, that can definitely bring teams closer together. Take a scenario where you have the BA creating an epic inside of Jira. The testers can either be creating the story against that, or the BAs can be creating the story themselves. We've seen both ways of working. But then again, the stories would be created against the epics in Jira. Against these stories, you would create test cases inside of Jira. The test cases would be linked to a cycle, which can hold folders to subdivide the effort within a cycle, assignment to a tester, so the tester can be notified that test case needs to be executed. They can execute, and they can raise defects, which are also inside of Jira. The defects can then be picked up by the developers, testing can be done, they can jump into their source code, fix the issue, deploy a patch or a new build, the testing can go back in, and we can retest. So in its entirety, end to end, everything can be handled within Jira. And then of course, when you're dealing with automation solutions, Zephyr for Jira has a series of APIs available called Zappy, which can be enabled, and we'll be talking about some of the advantages of using this, but particularly when it comes to automation and also the integration with CI tools. You can have those APIs ready and good to go, and they can then be used to leverage a connection using Jenkins or Bamboo, or even just using the API standalone to pull data out or push data in. So with that, let me show you around. Folks, by the way, thank you so much for the questions that are coming through. I can't handle all of them at the moment whilst I'm going through the demonstration, but when it comes to the QA portion, I'll be taking a look through your questions, and I'll be having a look at the chat windows as well, and I'll be addressing some of the queries that you have. So this is a screen showing you the Jira environment with Zephyr for Jira enabled. And you can validate this by, of course, going into the add-on section and making sure that Zephyr for Jira is there. But visually, you can also see that there is a tests menu here. Now, the tests menu allows you to access all of Zephyr for Jira's capability. It's not the only place, because let's say you want to create a new test case. You can just use the second entry over here to create your test case, but you can also use the generic create button and then select the issue type test from there. You see this area or this section of the menu auto populates the issue type to be type test, whereas over here you'll see your other issue types there too, like a story, like an epic, like a task, and then you just change that, switch that over to test to create your test case. The top section here, or the first option, is your search tests area. And in fact, actually, let me just take you there to show you. This is your issue navigator that you have in Jira. And this is, again, just selected the issue type to be test for you. So it's leveraging the same issue navigator, but selecting the issue type test here. So you can browse through all of the test cases that you have, seeing the items on the left and the content there on the right. So we've covered how to search for test cases, how to create test cases. Before I go into some of the others, let me just quickly show you around and point out how a test case looks. So we've got all of the top level poignant information around the test up at the top in the details area. Then we can have a editable descriptions area, and below that we can have some steps. Now what you can do is add columns if you want to add additional columns. You can view your test case or your steps, I should say, visually by going to the larger view, and it just pops out and shows you a larger view of your steps. You can freeze the first two columns here, the ID and the step, which allows you to then scroll through the other columns that you have. So you can go through the others. And then on the right-hand side, we've got some other actions that you can perform as well. Like you can go to the copy area and clone this test case and insert it before the current step that you're on, after the current step that you're on, at a particular step, or just append the list of steps that you have already. So if I just clone this, let's say after step 2. A nice feature that we've introduced into Zephyr for Jira 4.0.3 is this, kind of pretext that we have over here for clone. You can go into the administration section for the add-on, just go to manage add-ons, and you'll see a general configuration area over there, and you can get rid of the kind of text mentioned at the start of this as well. So you just have your clone of test me right here. There are other features too, so I'll introduce you to the support documentation with the release notes so you can take a look at what's changed. I'll also showcase to you what's coming up with Zephyr for Jira as well, both cloud and also Zephyr for Jira server. So at the bottom, we have any history of the test case. So as it gets executed, you'll see the history appear over here. So let me show you an example of this if I can. Let's switch to another project. And I'll pick a test case. There we go. And there we go. That's a test case. So below that, we see all of the execution information. And then here we have a linkage of the test case to an existing bug and also to an existing story as well. So you can define, again, in the configuration area, you can define the relationship that these should have. We've defined these as relates to relationships, but you can change this as well. So that's how a test case looks. Now, when it comes to execution, we'll need to add the test case to a cycle, right, into a sprint. So you can either go into the planned test cycle area where you'll visually see all of the sprints available, and you can see these by release. And then you can also create subfolders within these areas too. So under manual, I've created backend and UI. And you can go into the 3 dots next to a subfolder and add the tests in. You can also visually see the progress of the sub areas right here too. And as you click on each of these, you'll see the corresponding test cases. So you'll need to add it into an existing cycle. You'll need to add the test case execution to an existing cycle. But what we can do is take a look at the test case directly from here and hit the execute button. If it hasn't yet been executed, in this area where you see the previous test case executions, there'll be a hyperlink here just to say that, hey, we haven't had any executions yet. Click on this button and let's go ahead and execute it. But since we already have some, I'll use this button. Now we can execute the test case on the fly, or we can add it to a release. And this version field can hold labels for releases, but you can also group your cycles by area of testing, platform, type of application, month, many different ways that you can use this label. It's just a question of semantics. The version field is currently holding data, grouping the cycles by release. So then I go into the cycle, and then I can assign it to someone. Of course, we have some subfolders here now. Jira now has the ability to add your test cases to a subfolder, not just at the overall sprint level. So I'll add this into UI, let's say. And then you assign the test case to a particular person, or just assign it to myself. I'll go ahead and execute. Now we get an object representing the test case execution. We can go through the steps and we can pass and we can fail the test case, and we can update the overall test case execution as being a fail as well. And every time the test case is executed, you'll see the full execution history here in this area. What we've done with this page is make sure that all of the information is very nicely compacted, and you can see everything. So on the right-hand side, you can see the summary and the description and who executed the test case and when. And you can also use this area at the top to navigate through your executions as well. So now that the test case is executed, you can add in some comments, for example, any execution information, any actual test results that you might want to include, or some notes to the developer, or any notes to management that you need to raise. They can all be added in right here in the comments area. You can add in some supporting evidence. Of course, we can leverage Jira Capture for the evidence as well. So we can take screenshots and video recordings and append them to test case executions. And then, of course, you can link a bug, a defect, to a test case as well. This can be at a step level, but if you come right up to the top, you'll notice that you can also raise a defect at an overall test case level as well. Again, link to an existing or create a new defect and append it to the test case execution. So notice that we took the test case, we added it to a sprint, we went ahead and executed it. After that, you can go into the search test executions area, which holds all of the execution objects against all of the test case issues that you have. So you can see when a test case was executed, which release it was under, which project it was under, and of course you can filter these and create your own filters. The next area, in fact, is to manage the execution filters. So, for example, you can create an execution filter for a given project or a given release. Now, execute tests is just showing you that same cycle view, but allowing you to click on the E button next to each test case under a cycle, under a release, under a subfolder area, and then execute that test case directly from a cycle-oriented view. So that's certainly possible. And then, when it comes to evaluating some of the progress, we've got a few options. Of course, there are some charts available. There are boards that we can leverage, the agile boards and the backlogs, and we can also use the dashboards as well. So let me show you around and highlight some of these. So you've got the test summary, which is just a high-level view of the test cases you have, how many have yet to execute, how many have been executed, and how many haven't yet been assigned to testers. Creation-wise, you can see a visualization over the last 30 days, and execution-wise too. Very simplistic data, but this is supplemented in the dashboards area where you can pull out some more detailed gadgets. Cycle summary and then traceability. So this is where we can select a release and then we can select an issue type. Let's take story. Hit the search button. Select your stories and then decide what do you want to do, because if we're working with stories, we probably want to see the interconnectivity of the requirement to the test case, to the execution data, to the defect. But you can also do the inverse of that. Notice the second radio button at the bottom, the tracking of defects all the way back to the originating requirements to evaluate the impact of an issue which has been faced. So we select the first, which is the requirements mapping all the way through to defects. And that's where we can see very clearly with hyperlinks, each of the stories connected to test cases and the execution data and the connected defects. Now, the importer allows you to connect up with, or I should say consume, data externally using Excel spreadsheets, an Excel compatible file like a CSV file, where you can hold your test cases and your steps. And there are a few discriminators in there too, like separating test cases with a blank line or by an ID change or by a name change. And this can allow you to parse your data and retain all of it by making sure that you've also set up some custom fields within Zephyr to capture your all of your spreadsheet information, making sure that you're not really losing anything when you push your data into Zephyr for Jira. So certainly set up some custom fields for the test cases, and if need be, you can also set up custom fields for your executions as well. Now, a couple of pointers, some things that you can look at. First of all, when it comes to automation, as I've mentioned, there is a series of REST-based APIs which you can enable. Head over to the Atlassian Marketplace and look at Zephyr, which enables your APIs. And the APIs can either be used independently, so you can use something like Postman to pull and push data, or you can embed your APIs into your code. You can also use Zephyr Blueprints for Confluence, which will need the APIs enabled. You can use the Jenkins or Bamboo plugin as well, which will require Zephyr to be enabled in the background. Again, you can select which sprint, which cycle you want to push the data into, which project as well, and it will auto-populate your test cases, your issue types, with the test cases that have been executed, and also create the execution objects for you as well. I'm just going to quickly show you the dashboards as well. And whilst the dashboards are loading up, I made a point earlier on around Zephyr for Jira Capture, which is also available on the Atlassian Marketplace. Using that, you can take screenshots, you can take video recordings and append these to your issues within Jira. So certainly take a look at Capture for Jira as well. So this is the dashboard, and you can have burn down charts in here. You can have a look at your sprint progress. You can slice data by tags and by labels. You can have a look at user-oriented views to see the test case assignments. From a reporting perspective, you might want to just quickly see which proportion of test cases have passed, failed, are in a custom status, are blocked. You can quickly do that using the execution progress gadget available. Of course, because all of the requirements and defects information is available for us to use as part of the gadgets, you can add in Jira gadgets as well as the Zephyr for Jira gadgets as well, all into one unified dashboard, which is quite nice. You can even have an activity stream shown here too. So take a look at the dashboard capability. If you go into the dashboards and create a new widget or add a new widget, you'll be able to go through the library and pick and choose which Zephyr for Jira gadgets you want to add in, and also which Jira gadgets you want to add in as well. So quite a few options for you to work with. Now, just a couple of other points. When it comes to obtaining more information, around Zephyr for Jira, head over to getzephyr.com/support. Then you can have a look at the online help, which goes through all of the support documentation that we have. We do have more than just Zephyr for Jira, the plugin solution. There's also Zephyr standalone, which is outside of the Jira environment. This is the Zephyr for Jira data right here. So for cloud and for server. And if you click on one of these hyperlinks, you'll be taken to the subpages. This is an example of one here. So I've gone into Zephyr for Jira 4.0. And if I go over to release notes, you'll see the most recent release 4.0.3, what's been added in. You can go through and have a look at all of the bug fixes, all of the UI changes, all of the enhancements that we've created. Now, from a visibility perspective, so you're completely familiar with what we're developing and what we're looking to introduce. And if you have some suggestions for us, we've got some options. Whether you're on Zephyr for Jira server or whether you're on Zephyr for Jira cloud, we have a Trello board. So you can access a list, a series of cards on what we're working on. And of course, if you can set up your own credentials for Trello, sign up for free, head in, you can vote and add comments as well. So certainly take a look at that. Some really exciting capabilities coming in, particularly around automation, and you are going to love the support for BDD that we have upcoming for you. And that's just around the corner where we've developed it. It's ready and good to go. So take a look out for the automation and the BDD features which are coming up alongside some others too. So before we get into a Q&A, we do have another poll for you. Here we go. So the question is, I prefer a test management solution that is native to Jira, inside of Jira, so you're using the Jira capabilities existing, but then supplementing that with a test management solution inside of the Jira environment. Or I'd like to be outside of Jira, still maintaining a tight integration with Jira, but benefiting from scale and automation, robust reporting, a richer set of capabilities which are outside of the Atlassian ecosystem. Therefore, from a development perspective, more features and capabilities, basically. And then the third option is, I'm not sure which one I need. So get your voting fingers ready, please, if you haven't already voted. All right. PJ, what do the results look like?
All right.
There we go, 62%.
Native to Jira, which I think.
And to be frank with you, that's understandable because you want the learning curve to be quite shallow. You want them to be up and running with the test management solution straight away. You don't want there to be, although it's nowadays you can create UIs which are learnable, which are easy to pick up. If you're inside of the environment already, then it's just an extensible capability. For you to go that bit further by understanding how you can incorporate test management into an already working system. So that makes sense. It's just some other considerations that we need to look at as well. Like I've pointed out earlier on, automation, scale, reporting, we need to look at some of these as well. But, certainly working inside of the Jira environment ticks a lot of the boxes, certainly for you. Great. Okay, so we'll be taking some Q&A now. So if you have any questions or queries, please put them into the Q&A section or put them into the notes. Myself, Ashwini, and PJ will be taking a look through these and answering whatever we can. So let me take a look. Okay, so I'll take one of the recent ones that have just come in from Harvinder. How do I kick off a script from Zephyr for Jira? So kicking off a script from Zephyr for Jira is not possible because when you're inside of the Jira environment, you can't access external frameworks directly so easily. You know, you're going to have to use something like APIs to make an external call, or you're going to have to push data in from the automation framework itself. Now, the way around this is by plugging your test management solutions at Jira with a CI solution that can act as a trigger that can manage the execution and then pass the data back in. So again, you're not really triggering from Zephyr for Jira, you're more triggering from the CI solution, but it's taking that data, parsing it, and pushing it back into the Jira environment. So Maurice is asking around the CSV template for importing test cases into Zephyr for Jira. So the template can be shared with you. You can raise a support ticket, or you can reach out to us directly and we can send you an email with an example template. Essentially, as I mentioned earlier on, 3 different ways: separating test cases by blank line, by name change, or by ID. And just so that you're familiar with how the data needs to be laid out, we can certainly send a template over to you if there's any massaging of the data on your side that you need to do. So Manasa, great question around the test complete capability with Zephyr for Jira. It will be coming soon, very soon. It's more or less done. I can probably say it's done. It will be coming very, very soon, and it looks great. It looks really, really good. You can take the data from test complete and push it into the Zephyr for Jira environment. It's fantastic the way that it parses and brings over the components and test execution information is really, really nice. And we're of course looking to further enhance it even more than it will be right now. Let's see, gosh, there's so many questions, right? Let me try and pause so I can read one of these.
While you're looking at those, Millen, I'll just say there's a few questions about if we'll be sharing the recording. So yes, we will be sending that out to you via email, so stay tuned for that. Also, just want to note that so there are literally hundreds of questions here coming in. If we can't get to your question today, we will do our best to follow up with you afterwards. And I'd also encourage people to reach out to us on Twitter with any questions that you might have, and we'd be happy to get back to you that way as well.
Thank you, PJ. I'm going to take some really quick fire ones here. There's some short and snappy ones. So Mod, video tutorials wise, take a look at our YouTube channel. Have a look at the video content there. There's also a video section in the support page that I referenced earlier on right here. So take a look there too. We are looking to refresh our video content as well with all of the new features and improvements coming out. So Mod, more data, more material coming your way. Certainly from a video perspective. Others, how can you more easily find something in Jira? Len, that's just the same way that you do in Jira. You would go into the issue navigator, you go to issues and search for issues, and that's how you'd find data. You can build JQL queries. You can use the drop downs to conduct your searches, to prune your search results, and then with those search results you can export them to create your reports as well. What's really handy when you're working in this particular way is certainly when you're creating your issues, be it tests or stories or epics or any of the other issue types, make sure you load the data, make sure you load the issues with as much data as you can, like labels, like tags, and fixed versions. All of this information is imperative, because then you can actually get to the data that you need when you're running the queries. Can you handle release plans, master plans, etc.? So Marcus, the way that the planning is done is via the test planning section within the tests menu. This allows you to create cycles and sprints that are release oriented and subfolders within there. What you're not able to do is create a an area where your test cases are going to be in one place. You would actually just share them. You'd actually duplicate your test cases and share them across your projects if you want to use them in other projects. But you can certainly take the same test case and apply it to different versions. That's no problem. That's pretty easy. Holly, yeah, do the same. Just send us a message and we'll get an article written up for you with the importer template, or we'll send out an email to you so you have the template available. And I'll take perhaps one or two more. I'll just scroll up to some of the earlier ones and see what there is there. When the execute button is pressed, what does it do? So the E button is, it takes you to the test case execution view. So when I go to execute tests and I see my sprint oriented views and I click on the E button, it either takes me into this test case because it's already been executed, right? So if I click on the E button, it'll take me into the test case execution and show me what happened. But if a test case has not yet been executed, let's take, for example, this instance here. If it hasn't yet been executed, I can jump in and I can execute. So I can go through your steps and flag them with the right statuses. Fail that. There we go. Update the overall test case execution as a failure. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you. So I think we're running out of time here, but I just want to quickly thank Ashwini for walking us through some of those slides and giving us some context around test management, and of course Milan for giving us the demo today and fielding all of these questions. So thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm sure we'll have another webinar coming up soon, so stay tuned, and we hope you'll join us then. Thanks everyone.
Pleasure. Thanks everyone.